Here is our beautiful harvest this morning. We have all of these really beautiful red jalapenos and some serranos, some poblanos, and also paprikas. We have some hibiscus, okra, cayennes, and here a bunch of really beautiful green beans, cucumbers. Got some really beautiful tomatoes this morning, like this one here. Look at that thing. That is beautiful. I haven't gotten a big tomato like this in a while at this point. But I also have some snacking peppers, a cantaloupe. Very excited about this morning's haul. So I figured I would take you guys along today as I get some of this stuff preserved. I have some more okra in the fridge and I'm going to be doing some pickled okra. I need to dry this hibiscus. I have a bunch of red jalapenos here for sriracha, which I'm really excited about. And I think I might play around with other hot sauce. We'll see exactly how much I have as far as that goes, but I have some cayennes and paprikas that I'm going to dry as well. I am so excited about all of these green beans. I plan to blanch and freeze those, and I'm probably going to freeze some of these tomatoes as well and do some other things, but I figured I would take you guys along for the day as I get some of this stuff preserved up. I also need to do a lot of garden maintenance, which I don't know if I'm going to get to today. I might get to a little bit later, but I have a ton of stuff going to seed at the moment, and there's a few things I really don't want spreading, like the hyssop. I did not know hyssop was part of the mint family when I originally grew it years and years ago. It was part of my first garden, and ever since it's just been sprouting up randomly in this garden, and I actually intentionally planted more. I also keep getting the question on where I get all of my little harvest baskets from. So I got all 4 of these in an estate auction. They were all bundled together, I think for maybe $10. This one here is from Etsy, but I also have a few just from antique malls that I found for $2-3. So definitely look secondhand for baskets because you can find some good deals. I think this one was like 50 plus, but it was a gift. I really like this one, but these baskets work great too. Okay, so we are dabbling in a little bit of everything today when it comes to preserving. We're doing fermenting, freezing, freeze drying, canning. I am gonna throw a few things into the fridge, like these snacking peppers and the cucumbers, and the cantaloupe's just gonna sit on the counter. But we are going to be doing a bunch of different preservation methods. I'm going to start with the green beans. So I'm going to get these green beans blanched into an ice bath. I'm gonna get them all laid out on a cookie sheet and I'm gonna pre-freeze them. So by pre-freezing the green beans, it's going to allow them to not stick together once they are in a freezer bag or if I vacuum seal them. Then that way they're just a lot easier to grab and go. I think I am going to vacuum seal these, so I haven't had my vacuum sealer for long. The green beans are actually one of those things I'm really excited to vacuum seal because green beans and broccoli are those things that I typically toss into my freezer. So I am going to be portioning these out a little bit, but we got a good amount of green beans today. So I'm gonna get these all washed, trimmed up. We're gonna get them into the boiling water ice bath, and this should go pretty quick. After that, I think I'm gonna go ahead and get my cayennes and paprikas into the freeze dryer, and then we'll move on to our red jalapenos, get all of that fermented for sriracha sauce. And then I think at that point I will can. I think I'm gonna do canning last, even though I really feel like I'm gonna regret that decision. But okra goes really, really quick when it comes to canning. So hopefully I don't regret doing one of the more time consuming things last. I think by checking off a lot of these like quicker things right off the bat will make me feel a little bit accomplished. And I wanna get just a bunch of this knocked out as fast as I can. So let's start with the beans. One thing I have never canned and never have an intention to can is green beans. So fun little story. The one and only thing I grew before having my own garden was green beans when I was younger one summer. And apparently from that moment on, my mom had a really hard time trying to give us any type of green bean that wasn't frozen or fresh. Typically fresh was like our go-to with that. But I've never liked canned green beans. I think they have a very different taste and texture that I've never been a fan of. So I'm really excited we are getting another good amount of beans. I was really hoping to at least have enough going into Thanksgiving for green bean casserole. And I still have green beans from June. I think I'm on my last like maybe 1 or 2 dinners worth. But I'm really excited. The green beans are starting to just produce again. So I'm gonna get these all rinsed off like I mentioned. I'm going to just trim up any of like the woody stems and maybe some of the bases if I need to. The process of blanching is to help remove any extra dirt, bacteria that could be surface level. It also inactivates any enzymes on it. It will preserve the color of it. And it can help your vegetables last a little bit longer in the freezer, at least from my experience. I personally like it because it also softens up the vegetable because we are technically cooking it for 2 minutes before we throw it into that ice bath to stop the cooking. And with having it cooked just for a few minutes, when you go to use these green beans, you really don't have to cook them all that long. Maybe like 4 or 5 minutes is typically what I will do once they are like in boiling water when I want to cook them. And it also softens it a little bit to where you can just toss them into stir fries really easily. So I'm just taking off some of like the little woody ends, and I'm going to be leaving these whole. I personally like to leave my green beans whole. By cutting them, I feel like that just allows a little bit extra water to be introduced, which I don't really like. So I like to keep them as whole as possible. The green bean variety that I grew this year is a variety called Seychelles. I believe that's how it's pronounced. It is a pole bean variety, and I have actually really liked it this year. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier or not, but I did plant these, I want to say the last week of April, maybe first week of May. I want to say I planted them before I planted out much else in the garden just because we were warm. I've had these in the ground pretty much the entire growing season, and they didn't produce much at all during the hot part of summer. I got a lot in June, but then when it came to July and August, I really didn't get anything. I really only started to get green beans again starting last week, so September. But just to have those plants continue on and like keep growing was great. I really love my trellis area over there because I have green beans and then it's majority loofah. So I mean, it's not like I was really wasting space. They were just kind of dormant per se for that little bit of time, but I have really enjoyed this variety, and I think I'm going to grow them again next year. I've always been a bigger bush bean girl, but one thing when I go back to talking about how during like midsummer, things just slow down. So the last few years, I've tried to succession sow green beans after my garlic and onions, and I would typically plant them in June because you have plenty of time if you plant them because green beans are a very quick crop. For me, I had terrible green bean years the last 2 years because we've just been hot and the green beans weren't producing at all. And in previous years, before I really was trying to like maximize my space and succession sow as much as I can, I would just plant a whole thing of bush beans and I had amazing green bean years. And I think it's just because they got that cool spring. All right, I'm just going to slide these beans into the boiling water and I'll set a timer for 2 minutes. Most things are just like 2 to 3 minutes. I've never blanched anything for longer than that, to be honest. One of my little hacks I have when it comes to blanching green beans, broccoli, anything like that is to get my salad spinner out. So I really, really enjoy using my salad spinner for things other than just salad and herbs, especially for also carrots. Like if I am going to be pre-freezing or freezing anything, using this is game changer because it's going to get any of that extra water off of the vegetable before we do any type of pre-freezing. And that's just going to help us avoid any type of freezer burn. You will be shocked on how much water I get off of these beans once we get them into the ice bath and everything. All right, 2 minutes is done. Let's get these beans transferred into the ice bath here. And the ice bath will simply just, any cooking that already started, it will just kind of pause and freeze that. I really should invest in like a nice like slotted, like large like spoon or like a frying spoon for situations like this. I never think about it until I'm in a situation like this where it would be really nice to have, and then I never use it because I feel like I'm always playing like bobbing for green beans. All I'm going to do is grab some green beans. So when it comes to using a cheap salad spinner like this, and you're doing anything outside of like lettuce and herbs and stuff, I wouldn't fill it full just because it gets heavy, and I've had some issues with that before. All right. See, look at all that extra water that came off that we do not need. So then all I'm going to do is actually lay these green beans out in a single layer. That way when I go to put them into the freezer, they won't stick together. And after like an hour or two, I can take these, which I don't know if I'm gonna get to them in an hour or two. I will get to them before the end of the night. That way they're just not going to freeze together. It allows you, if you're putting them into just a freezer bag and you're not gonna vacuum seal them, just to grab out what you want. And yeah, it makes life a lot easier. I love pre-freezing things on a cookie sheet beforehand. I mean, you don't have to be too tedious with this. If they touch a little bit, it's really not gonna matter much. Green beans kind of have a texture to them anyway, where they don't fully stick together like a broccoli would or stuff like that, but I still like to lay them out into a somewhat single layer. So when I take these downstairs to put them into the freezer, I'm also gonna go ahead and get my freeze dryer on. So with my cayennes and paprika peppers here, which my paprika pepper variety is one called the Hungarian Magyar from Renee's garden. I really, really enjoy these because they are very easy to dry. Even if you have a dehydrator, you can dehydrate these really well and get a nice powder. So love this pepper. I've grown them for a minimum, I want to say, of 4 or 5 years. At this point, I've grown them for quite a long time. I really, really enjoy them. But one thing I am actually going to do is, last week I decided I wanted to combine the two and make a spicy paprika powder, because I have a good amount of just plain paprika powder already stashed, and this will probably be one of my last rounds that I make with any of my paprikas. I might do some more red chili flakes with some of my cayennes through the next month, but for the most part, I have enough paprika powder. I might actually play around with doing a smoked paprika this last time, like the last round of paprikas I get, but I really like the spicy paprika of just combining the cayennes and the paprikas. I did it I want to say I made wings the other night, and I used them on the wings, and I really liked the combination. I mean, it's pretty much just me having cayenne and paprika powder and just combining the two, so it makes my life a little bit easier when I am cooking. So I'm just throwing them all in there, and we're gonna get these onto some freeze dryer trays. One of my biggest complaints when it comes to working with cayennes over the years is how thin walled some of them are. It makes it really hard to de-seed them like this if you're trying to make a straight powder. It's not really necessary if you are making more of a red chili flake like I mentioned, but when it comes to making powder, they can be extremely hard to work with. Last year I grew a variety called Red Rocket, I believe, which is also another hybrid from Johnny's, and I was so excited about it. And then I absolutely hated the cayenne because it was so thin walled. It was just very hard to work with. So I really like this cayenne variety. Again, it's called Red Ember, and the thick walls remind me of the paprika. Like, they're about the same thickness in like this, like the flesh of the pepper. So by doing them together on the freeze dryer, I haven't had an issue with one of them drying faster than the other. They dry out pretty much the exact same, but I love that cayenne variety, and I will for sure be growing it again next year. I think it might be my favorite cayenne variety I've tried. Every year, I think I've tried a different cayenne variety in hopes I'd find one I really, really like. And this is the first one I think I'll be growing again. I really, really enjoyed it. All right, we are moving on to our red jalapenos here. So I am following a recipe from Pepper Geek. I really liked how they did their recipe and like the steps they did. So one thing I'm going to be doing is getting all of these peppers cleaned. We'll see exactly how much of these I need. I'm going to get these washed up. I'm going to slice them like I did the cayennes and the paprikas, de-seed them. And I'll weigh everything out as I go. But this is gonna be a newer process for me. Anytime I've fermented peppers in the past, I haven't pureed them prior. I've always just kind of weighed them out and gone from there. Okay, so I had the correct amount of peppers and I have the 3 cloves of garlic here all weighed out. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to add the weight of the sugar. So they say 2 tablespoons of sugar here. And then I'm going to add half a cup of water to this. And now I'm going to take this weight and I'm going to times that by 0.03, and that's going to give me the weight of salt I need. So this is the way I've always done it. You do the total weight of all your ingredients and then you times it by either 0.02 or 0.03. I have a fermentation lid that I'm going to put on. And there we go. We'll see how this experiment goes. I feel like I was just really concentrating to make sure I didn't do anything wrong, just because whenever I do something new, I really have to concentrate. But that sauce smells amazing and I'm really excited to see how it turns out. So hopefully it turns out. You know, fermentation's kind of up in the air, but I'm really excited about that. For the okra, I'm using the pickled okra recipe on page 313 from the Ball Book of Home Preserving. And this is pretty quick and easy. So I have actually already got my water and salt here starting to dissolve. That way salt can take a little bit to dissolve. So I have 3 cups of water here and 3/4 of a cup of salt. 1/3 cup of salt. That would have been a lot of salt. And now I'm just gonna get 3 cups of vinegar all mixed up, and this is going to be our brine. And I'm gonna start to get this all warm and ready to go while we start trimming up the okra. So I have 1.5 pounds of okra here, and that should give us roughly about 2 pints worth of pickled okra. We will see. The one thing that amazes me every time I do pickled okra is how much you can pack, how many okra pods you can pack into a pint jar. So I do have 4 whole jars in here getting warmed up. I also am gonna add a little bit of vinegar to this. That way our jars stay clean. And we're gonna get those warm while we get this warm and the last bit of the salt dissolved. And what I'm going to do is actually get the okra all cleaned up, and then I'm going to trim up the ends. Not enough where we are exposing the insides, just enough where we do not have that stem anymore. One thing I wanted to show you guys that I forgot to this morning is I'm pretty sure this was one of those like double blossom like weird okras, because for example, it looks like 2 okras stuck together, but it's all one. And even like the stem is a lot thicker. So I found that really interesting. But now I just need to get this washed up and trimmed up. I already have the few peppers. While I was doing all the peppers, I went ahead and just cut and de-seeded some serranos for this. And I also have a few cloves of garlic as well. This is really quick and easy to where I don't really care about only getting a few jars processed. I'm not a pickle girl, nor am I an okra girl. I do pickled okra for my husband and also friends that really enjoy it. So I'm not mad about spending about an hour doing this. It does not take that much effort compared to other canning recipes. So without further ado, I'm gonna end up running out of daylight before I know it, because I got started a lot later than I wanted to today. All right, I have all of my stuff set up, and I am going to start by just taking out 2 of the jars and seeing exactly how much I can get packed into these jars. All I'm doing is putting a half serrano that I de-seeded at the bottom along with 1 garlic clove, and I'm just going to start packing as many okras as I possibly can per jar. This will help everything not float, but again, you're probably gonna have some type of floating regardless, even with how much you really pack these in there. So I personally like to tilt them off to the side. That way nothing is kind of going rogue, and I can nicely place these as much as I can standing straight up. Okay, this is up to a rolling boil, and I'm gonna start my timer for 20 minutes. While all of that processes, I'm gonna get these green beans all vacuum sealed. See how they're all just now hard and they're not sticking together or anything? Now I'm just gonna press back and seal. All right, so these look great. It's just about a dinner's amount per bag here. And one thing, if you don't have a vacuum sealer, I did this for years, if you just put it in a freezer bag and kind of sift out the beans where they're laying as flat as possible, close majority of that freezer bag and take a straw and suck out as much air as possible. This will just really help eliminate a lot of freezer burn problems you might end up having. But I've done that for years and it works great. This is just really convenient. I am new to vacuum sealing as of about a month ago, and I am such a fan. It's so much fun. Very, very excited about this. So I have about 10 minutes left in the canning process. So I'm just bringing out the extra peppers for a little snack for my chickens, and I'm gonna collect some eggs real quick. The days getting shorter always throws me off because they get short so quick. I think our sunset tonight is 7:40, and that's like in 20 minutes, and I still have not watered the garden, which needs watering today because we have not got rain, and I want to say about a week and a half. All right, let's see how many eggs we got for the day. Man, did we really only get 2? Oh, we got 3. Nothing too exciting. They average about 3. These girls definitely don't lay as much as my hybrid girls did, but 3 a day isn't terrible. You guys like my socks with sandals? I'm sure it's a good look. I'm gonna get that stuff out of the canner and run back out here and water the garden. And there's a few other things I need to do, like putting the hibiscus in the dehydrator. I have some in my hang dryer at the moment, but I'm gonna go ahead and dehydrate all of that. It's just taking a little longer, and they're kind of higher in moisture. And anything when it comes to the hang dryer, I've noticed it just does better with lower moisture. Like, it completely dried out the lavender I threw in there within like a day, and then same with the rosemary, but the hibiscus is still holding on to a lot of moisture, and I don't want that. So I'm gonna dehydrate all of that tonight, and that might be it. We'll see. I'm not exactly sure. I need to see exactly what I have left. We got some really pretty eggs today though. Look how gorgeous those are. I'm gonna let those kind of come down. Good morning, everyone. So I am just checking on the hibiscus. I did not let this completely go overnight. I stopped it when I went to bed, and I'm thinking I want to let it go just for probably a few more hours to make sure everything is like really, really dry. So I'm gonna actually put this downstairs in my basement so it doesn't heat up the kitchen today. And while I'm down there, I'm gonna grab everything we freeze dried. The freeze dryer just got done, and I'm going to grind that into a powder and get that all put away. I think I'm going to hold off on doing anything with the tomatoes and the cucumbers. The tomatoes I'm gonna let ripen just for another day or two before I toss them into the freezer. And then with cucumbers go, my whole plan with the cucumbers this year was just to eat them fresh. I really didn't want to make any cucumber pickles. I still really don't, but I might end up making a batch of fermented pickles later on today, or maybe some fridge pickles. I don't know. I'm not really sold on doing any like pickled pickles, because again, I'm not a pickle girl. That is just not my thing, and I don't really feel like messing with them. I'm gonna get this put downstairs. I'm gonna get everything we freeze dried up here and get that all put away, and that might be it. So when I am storing any freeze dried or dried goods in a jar, I do make sure I sterilize the jar. I'm just going to get all of the peppers in the blender, blend it up, and that will be it. So one of the reasons why I really like to freeze dry like a lot of my peppers and herbs versus dehydrating them is the simple reason the dehydrator gives it a slightly cooked flavor when the freeze dryer really just has its true flavor. The herbs are unmatched, and I really just love it for all of my herbs and spices in my pantry. Perfect little fit. I'm gonna get my vacuum sealer, and we're gonna vacuum seal this lid on. All right, perfect. We're gonna get a ring on that, and I'm gonna get this dated, whatnot, but I think this is where I'm going to end this video. I'm going to enjoy my weekend, as I hope you are enjoying yours. I definitely still have a mighty to-do list on garden maintenance, so we'll see if I get any of that done this weekend, but thank you guys so much for being here. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.